What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here. Today I'm bringing you something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about a couple of legendary Pokemon and how they rank in terms of the Draft League format. Obviously, this skews more towards the Uber side because a lot of these Pokemon that you're going to see on the list here are Ubers, but I do believe that we can have a really awesome tier list for you guys today. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it. If you guys are excited, make sure to leave a like on the video. If you guys want to see more tier lists, make sure to give me suggestions down below. Even doesn't have to be tier lists. It can be any type of discussion video as well, and I will make it, especially on the lead up to Scarlet and Violet. I do want to bring some more content, something in the middle of the week, usually around Wednesdays. So we'll see what we can do. So let's go ahead and jump into the tier list. Now, obviously, this skews more towards the competitive side, and of course, this skews towards the Ubers leagues more. So we have the S tier, which is going to be the best of the best. These are like not only considered to be bannable in like really high level Ubers leagues, but Pokemon that are insanely strong. A tier are some of the best in these Ubers leagues, but not necessarily things that could be considered bannable. B is going to be things you see mostly in, like, I'd say maybe early BBL stuff, like the non-showdown side really. C would be anything that you could see in a non-Ubers league. D would be Pokemon that are not as strong, and then F would be Pokemon that even in a standard league would not see very much play at all. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into it, starting off, and we're gonna actually, I might make another tier later on down the line, so we're gonna see, but starting off with our first one, I'm gonna actually go with the Articuno here, the Galar Articuno in the F tier. This Pokemon really is missing a lot in terms of coverage. It is one of the only, actually is the only of the Galar birds who gets an ability to recover back its HP. And it's not even Roost, it's Recover. So it's not great there. It does get the ability, it does get the ability to pivot, however, which is nice, but in terms of what it does overall for a team, it's not as useful as something like even Articuno, which I would put in the D tier. Obviously, its typing is not as good defensively, but the fact that it has access to Stab Freeze Dry is really nice. The fact that it has Recovery, has U-Turn, has all these really nice things is really cool. Pressure as an ability that it gets is, solid. It's a really effective Toxic Stalling Pokemon, which Galar Articuno cannot do. The only problem is it is 4 times weak to Hazard, so you are pretty much locked into running Boots. Next up, we're going to see the, what is this? This is the Galar Zapdos as just a generic Pokemon here. It is one of the best Pokemon that came out of this new generation. It is really strong physically, can hit it really hard with Brave Bird and with the close combat. Being able to nuke teams, Thunderous Kick is a fantastic stab move against U-Turn. Really, it's out of all the Galar birds, this is the one that does exactly what it should be doing, as being a crazy physical breaker. But above that, though, is definitely going to be a regular Zapdos. Let's put it above. Regular Zapdos is so damn strong. One of the best Pokemon still in the game since its inception, really, back, 22 years ago now. It is crazy strong. Having the amazing typing of Flying and Electric is just amazing. The speed at base 100 is great. Having the ability to go physical or, well, not physical, defensive or offensive is really useful as well. It can pivot, it can be supportive, it can set up with honestly, I was gonna say with Ancient Power, but what I wanted to say was it can actually do Throat Spray with Metal Sound, which is very scary. I like this Pokemon a lot, one of my absolute favorites to use in the format. Then we have the Galar Moltres. This I would put into the C tier. I have a newfound respect for this Pokemon. I've used it before a couple of times. Just defensively, it takes so many hits because of its typing. It's bulkier Mandibuzz, so maybe it's a good thing it didn't get access to Roost. Either way, though, I do think that what it provides for a team is unmatched compared to Pokemon that have the same typing, like Yveltal or Mandibuzz. Obviously, Yveltal is the better, Mandibuzz is a bit worse, depending on how you look at it. But this thing can set up with agility and with Nasty Plot. Berserk is a fantastic ability for this thing because you're always going to be taking those hits. And the coverage of Flying and Dark is really, really strong, especially on the special side. And with moves like Sucker Punch for priority, you're in a really good position. Just wish it got Heat Wave. Next up, though, is going to be regular Moltres. I would put regular Moltres actually above the Galar Moltres, which is kind of funny that all 3 of the legendary birds have the original Kanto forms ahead of the Galar forms, in my opinion. And the reason for this is because what this Pokemon provides as an ability in Flame Body is really useful. Getting the ability to run Will-O-Wisp, to have great coverage options, whether it's Scorching Sands, Mystical Fire, Hurricane, gets Solar Beam as well. I believe it gets Ancient Power too, is really, really nice. Recovery and Roost is so valuable. U-Turn is amazing. Yes, you're locked into running Boots on this Pokemon, but it takes so many hits, and it's really easy to find Pokemon that can take the raw coverage that is going to be plaguing Moltres. I like it a lot. Next up, we have Mega Mewtwo X and Mega Mewtwo Y. I'll just pop them up here. These are both S tier Pokemon. Absolutely fantastic. They do so much for a team. The fact that Mega Mewtwo Y is insanely fast, faster than regular Mewtwo, and I believe faster than Mega Mewtwo X, is crazy. Its special attack is ridiculous. I believe it's like in the 170s, if I'm not mistaken. I should probably double check that to make sure, but we should just double check again. Mewtwo Come on now, that's the wrong Mewtwo. Mewtwo Y has a special attack stat of 194. Not even 170. 194 is crazy. Its coverage is absolutely insane. Some of the best coverage you can possibly find in Pokemon. You can access to basically every elemental type in the game: fire, ice, water, grass with grass knots. You have access to Thunderbolt as well. And then you have your powerful psychic moves like Side Strike on top of that. Is crazy. I think Mega Mewtwo X is not as good. The fact that it gets the fighting type, in my opinion, could be a blessing to be able to deal with dark types. However, it makes you a bit weaker to other types as well, like the fairy type, like the flying types. You can't actually recover up on them as much as you'd like with something like a regular Mewtwo, for example. And speed stat not being as high as Mewtwo Y is obviously something that is not an advantage. I'm pretty sure Mewtwo X is the one that's slower, right? Yeah, Mewtwo X is the one that's slower. Mewtwo Y is the one that's faster. At the end of the day, they're both fantastic Pokemon. You can't go wrong with either one of them, but regular Mewtwo, in my opinion, is better. Yes, its stats are not as good. However, it gets to run multiple different items. You can run an Expert Belt if you don't want to take extra chips. You can run a Life Orb in certain situations if you want the extra damage. You can run a Resist Berry. You can run a Scarf. You can set up with leftovers a lot more easily. There's a lot more that regular Mewtwo can do, and that's why, in my opinion, it is better. It is better than these Pokemon here. I mean, listen, I could be wrong on this, but I feel like what Mewtwo provides for a team, the fact that you have so much more versatility, means it's better than its Mega Evolutions in certain situations, of course. Then we have Mew. Mew I'm going to put as a top of B tier for now, if I can get there. Mew as a legendary Pokemon, it's not really a legendary in the same sense of the word, because its stats are not as impressive overall. It's just base 600 overall, 100 all around, which is good. The fact that it can do basically anything is really nice. However, in Draft League especially, you have to kind of set up a team that is not built around Mew, more so a team that is built really well, and Mew is just kind of plopped onto it, which I think is a really interesting way to build. But it is so versatile, the most versatile Pokemon in the game, arguably, with the ability to set up with Dragon Dances or maybe even Calm Minds. It can set up agilities with weakness policies. It can be defensive. It can be a stall breaker. It can be support. It can do so many different things. Even Expert Belt and having priority, multiple forms of priority of this Pokemon are really, really nice. The main thing is you have to be creative to use Mew, and I think that being in the B tier makes it a lot of sense, considering that it is one of the, let's say, second tier Pokemon in standard Ubers leagues that you would see like the best of the best being maybe something like Yveltal at the worst case, and definitely in a cream of the crop where everything is unbanned. Mew is definitely not in the same tier as Mewtwo. Next up, we're going to see a Raikou. Now, Raikou I want to put here, probably it's going to be B or C, probably towards the end of B, I think. As a Pokemon in general, what it does is it just provides you with a great speed tier at 115, gets really decent coverage with Aura Sphere, Extra Sensory, Electric moves and Volt Switch and Thunderbolt and Discharge, and then Scald as well this generation, gets Calm Mind, and honestly, arguably one of the best Pokemon to run a Subtoxic Protect set on, which can catch a lot of people off guard and deal really well with ground types. Entei is definitely a step below. I'd put it below Galar Moltres. It just doesn't have the same kind of power it needs to in this generation. The good thing is it doesn't have to be adamant anymore to run Sacred Fire or Extreme Speed, and in general, just what it provides is kind of mimicked a lot by other Pokemon in the format, which is not as appealing anymore. Then we have the Suicune. Suicune I'm going to put above the Raikou, below the Galar Zapdos. I do think that this Pokemon gives a lot of power to a team. The issue is, in a higher level competitive scene, it's not as good, because the sets that are most effective are really good against people who don't know how to prep for them. So you don't see Suicune getting drafted as often in higher level leagues. In lower level leagues, though, if you run a Toxic Suicune, you can just win. If you run a Rest Toxic Suicune, you can just win. It's very hard to break down a Suicune if you're not prepping for it correctly, with whether it's Leech Seeds, Taunts, whether it's going to be Encores, whether you're going to just have a really good physical breaker with Electric or Grass typing. You're gonna have a hard time breaking through Suicune. So yeah, I'm gonna skip through the Shadow Lugia. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the F tier because it's not in the actual games itself, but we'll keep Shadow Lugia in the F tier for now. Regular Lugia definitely goes in the A tier. This Pokemon is insanely bulky. It is one of the greatest walls in the game. Having multi-skill is fantastic, but what really sets this Pokemon apart from its counterparts is going to be the speed stat at 110. Its typing as well as Psychic and Flying is great. Recovery is amazing, obviously, and the fact they can set up to having its unique move in Aeroblast is so nice. I really like this Pokemon a lot, and it just does so well for a team, whether it is going to be setting up or not. And again, like I said, the speed is the thing that draws me to it the most at 110, not the fact that it's got this crazy bulk stat that it would have on its typing and its stat modifications. Next up is going to be Ho-Oh-Ho. Definitely, I think with Regenerator, it's really higher than Lugia. I think it's actually arguable. But if it's not Regenerate, it definitely is below. So I'm going to put it below for now. And the main reason why is I think rocks are really a big factor, and they kind of force it to run boots, because you don't want to be taking your 50% and then trying to only recover back 33%. It's the same reason why I can't put Moltres higher. But what Ho has going for it over a lot of other Pokemon is it's really good to be, honestly, it can take a lot of physical rock moves that are not stab, which is crazy to think about. It's decently fast, I believe it's base 90 speed. It's got the ability to will-o-wisp things. It's got a crazy powerful move in Sacred Fire, which can 50% of the time burn something. Brave Bird is great. It's got Earthquake. It's got a lot of great physical coverage moves. And I think that honestly, Banded Ho is one of the best sets to run on this Pokemon. Just an absolute menace of a Pokemon, really powerful. Then we have Celebi. Celebi I have a really poor opinion of. I'm actually going to put it into the D tier. Yes, I know Celebi could be better than something like the Entei in certain situations. It has more utility in certain aspects than something like Galar Moltres, but the fact that in this current metagame, a lot of what you're seeing is just U-turning around, pivoting around with flip turn, U-turn, volt switch, all those different things is not great. And yes, while Celebi resists 2 of those moves I just mentioned, being 4 times weak to U-turn is not good at all. Pokemon like fighting types that this thing would try to come in and check, you can't check it anymore, because if they go for a U-turn, it's game over. You lose your Celebi. Obviously, it gets moves like Recover rather, and Rocks, which are really cool, and ability to just, well, break things with Leech Seed, with Giga Drain, Ancient Power, Psychic, all those moves. It's just not as powerful as it needs to be, and it just falls flat in my opinion. Next up, we're going to have Regirock. I'm going to put this in the F tier. It's just really good for rocks and being a Brave Bird resist rather, which is kind of the main reason why it's drafted. I just don't think it's as powerful, but it definitely can catch people off guard with body press shenanigans. So if you're interested in running it, go for it. Just I don't think it's as good as people make it out to be, and that's why I'm putting it here in the F tier. Regis, same thing. Regis going the F tier as well. As a ice type, you're better off going with Articuno. Regis is a really good Spidef wall with a terrible Spidef typing. It is what it is. It's a Regis. Its coverage is decent, and I don't think it doesn't even get freeze dry. I'm pretty sure it does. I should double check if it does, but that definitely gives us some points in my book if we get it freeze dry, and it does not get freeze dry. So yeah, F tier is definitely where it belongs. Registeel is the only one of the Regis that is going to go higher up. I'm going to put it in D tier. I'm going to put it above the Articuno. Registeel being usually a mid-tier Pokemon that you're going to be seeing is really good for getting rid of rocks. Its typing, obviously, in Pure Steel is great. Its defenses at 150 overall are really nice. And the fact that it gets access to rocks, to Body Press, to Thunder Wave is really cool. It's definitely the best of the Regis. And what it provides for a team is just, again, having that steel type on a team that doesn't really have another option. And it's a solid steel type overall. I just think that's a little bit passive for me, unless you're running Zap Cannon with Blunder Policy and you're running Weakness Policy or on another set or whatever. There's a lot of different things you can do with Registeel that are really cool. I just don't think they're as appealing as other Pokemon. Next up, we're going to see is Mega Latias. Mega Latias, I'm going to shove straight into the A tier. I'm going to put it at the top of A tier for now. I'm probably going to adjust that later on. Mega Latias, in my opinion, is better than Mega Latios, so I'll just do that right now. I would actually put Mega Latios definitely probably below all of them. I'll do something like this. I think this makes a bit more sense. The reason why is because they can't hold other items. They have to hold their stones, which is a little unfortunate, and their speed doesn't change from when they Mega Evolve, which is not the best in my opinion. Having the ability to just be insanely great coverage options with Healing Wish as well, with setup, with recovery, with the ability to Baton Pass now is great. They just provide so much for a team. I feel like they're just so similar to their original forms. They just have a little bit more bulk, a little bit more offense. It's not as much of a difference as I'd like to see when there's a Mega Pokemon. Something like Mega Mewtwo Y. Obviously, I'd put it lower than regular Mewtwo, but it really changes drastically because it's a lot faster. 10 points speed at that point, when you're going from 130 to 140 is a lot, and the special attacks you're getting on this Pokemon is insane. Same thing with the physical Mewtwo X. It just does so much more than a regular Mewtwo form in terms of the changing of what it does. Then we have Latias and Latios. I'm actually going to put Latias down here around this range. I'm going to put Latios over here at this range. There's a pretty big divide. Latias is just nowhere near as good in this generation as it was previously. I don't know if it's because of the more powerful dragon types that are roaming around, more powerful dark types that are running around, more U-turn supports. Just a Pokemon that's meant to be more defensive is not as good. Meanwhile, Latios, I think, is better this generation than it was in a previous generation. Still very strong other gens, but with the ability to just break through teams, having the ability to go with Mystical Fire now as a coverage option is great. Having Baton Pass is awesome. It gets so much utility in this generation as well, and most of the time you're just dropping fat Dracos and doing a ton of damage to everything, but both these Pokemon can still do so much for a team. I like them a ton. Our next up is going to be Kyogre, Primal Kyogre, which is definitely going to go in the S tier, and I'm actually going to join the Primal Groudon in the S tier as well. These, whether you want to interchange them one way or the other, doesn't matter to me. I do believe that it's going to be better to go with the Primal Groudon. It can just do a bit more, in my opinion, than Primal Kyogre does. I actually think that regular Kyogre is also going to go into the S tier here. It's just such an amazing Pokemon, and Rain is definitely the best weather to have overall, which is crazy to think. And having the ability to run some crazy Rain abusers is nice. Specs or Scarf Hydro Pumps, or even what's the word? Not Hydro Pumps. It's the move that is more powerful. Water Spout. There you go. Specs or Scarf Water Spouts are going to be insane with this Pokemon. I've used it in an Ubers League, and it is absolutely insane. It definitely should not be allowed in regular Ubers leagues. Next up is going to be a regular Groudon, which is going to go into here. I'm going to put it probably probably over here above the Latias, maybe below Mega Latios, but I do believe that Pokemon is fantastic. It's arguably to be better than the Ho. All these Pokemon here are really close in my opinion, but what regular Groudon does really well is it's a fantastic ground type, arguably the best in the game, with the ability to get rocks up, with the ability to set up with Sun. Providing that Sun support for a team is really nice. It can set up and be physical or special. It can just do things out of nowhere and snowball super quickly while other Pokemon can't. The main thing is its stats, its speed rather, at base 90 I think it is not as good as what I'd like it to be. And obviously for a legendary Pokemon, I want to be a bit faster, and Groudon just, it doesn't have that immediate power that something like Kyogre has, because its stab option has an immunity, and that's immunity through typing, not through an ability like Kyogre with Water Absorb or something like that. And at the same time, the fact that its Sun is not boosting its stab makes it a little bit harder to hit as hard as possible. Next we have Mega Ray. I'm definitely putting this in the Ubers tier. I'll put it at the top for now. I think this is arguably the best Pokemon in the game. One of the most fantastic things you could see running the stab flying coverage is insane. Having the ability to set up with Swords Dance and go for a game that way is amazing. Reducing the super effective damage that flying types take with its ability is awesome. Just a fantastic Pokemon. Then we got Regular Ray. Regular Ray I think is really, really good. I would put it basically here. I put it at the top over here, but again, everything in this A tier so far is super, super close. And in terms of what regular Ray provides, it stops the ability for it stops the ability for weather to be a problem for you. Unfortunately though, it is 4 times weak to ice, which is really unfortunate in certain situations that you're dealing with, like priority, whether it's a Sneasel or whether it's even something that just has, I don't know, like a Dawn fan with Ice Shard. It can be kind of annoying to deal with. It sets up really well with something like the Dragon Dance or the Swords Dance. It can be really good mixed or physical or special. There's a ton of different things, which is nice. Just again, this entire tier A is such a fantastic tier. It's so close, everything here, and I feel like Ray just stands apart a little bit from those Pokemon there. Then we have the Jirachi. Jirachi I would put below the Raikou. If you know me and Jirachi, I have a very much hate relationship with Jirachi. The fact that I never get the flinches when I need to, and then when I don't need them, or when someone goes to flinches against me, I get them, I get flinched, and then it misses Thunder Waves to cost me titles, which it happens. It is what it is. But this Jirachi, honestly, what it provides in Ubers, I think, is very different than what it provides in a standard league. And the fact that we're talking about Ubers now and Pokemon that are legendaries, I feel more confident in saying that Jirachi is not as good. The main thing is it is a great fairy resist, and that's really what it does. The coverage it has is not great. It doesn't hit as hard in Ubers. It doesn't really hit hard at all. The main gimmick is going to be that it tries to flinch you down. It tries to get Body Slam powers or Fire Punch powers or maybe even Ancient Power Boost. Who knows? But it's a rocker. It's a Wish Passer. It gets Healing Wish as well for another Uber, which is really cool. But in general, I don't think it's as good, as valuable as other Pokemon up here would be. Next up, I believe this is Deoxys Attack. I'm pretty sure. I think this is Deoxys Attack. Yeah. The Deoxys Attack, I believe, is it's a menace. it's a menace. I'll put this here. I'll put everything that I think should be up here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, I think. So something like this. I don't think that either one of the Deoxys forms belongs in the A tier. I think that if you look at a regular league, you can see that Deoxys speed is going to be hitting very, very softly. It's not going to be doing a ton of damage overall, which kind of lowers its points a bit, even though it is insanely fast. It's really frail as well. Then there is Deoxys defense, which doesn't have the attack to do as much as you'd like to do. It has the ability to recover. I believe it gets teleport, but I'm not sure on that. It does get rocks though. It does get spikes as well. It's just a fantastic Pokemon for what it provides, but it's very linear in terms of what it wants to do. On the other hand, you have Deoxys Attack, which is just insanely hard hitting, and I'd rather deal with a hard hitting Pokemon. I'd rather deal with a defensive Pokemon that can taunt than deal with Pokemon that hits as hard as regular Deoxys, because that can just snowball and end the game immediately. Meanwhile, Attack Deoxys. Regular Deoxys is arguably even scarier. It could be scary because it won't die to like an extreme speed from something. It won't die to a Sucker Punch. Maybe not as much, but it still is a fantastic Pokemon. I think these forms are definitely a lot better than these two down here. Next up, Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf all are very similar. I do think that Uxie falls into the C tier, Mesprit into the D tier, and Azelf into the B tier. This is pretty standard. A lot of people will agree with this kind of ranking. I do think that Uxie goes above Entei, probably even above the Galar Moltres, and I definitely think that Mesprit is above the 4 in the D tier at this point in time. But as of what it provides for a team is just a really hard special or physical breaker that can snowball quickly with its speed stat, I believe, at 115. It's a great lead as well with knockoff, sash explosions, and rocks, can taunt, and just its coverage is fantastic. Definitely one of the better Pokemon in this A tier. I think I'd actually put it above Latias even, maybe even above Galar Zapdos, to be honest. Yeah, I'd probably put above Galar Zapdos just because what it provides for a team is insane. And yes, it does force the Dark types to come in, but you pair this with the Fighting type, even then, you just think it's Dazzling Gleam and can hit really hard those Dark types rather. Uxie is just more of a defensive Pokemon. It kind of sets up rocks, it kind of sets up yawns, it's thunder waving things, it's being annoying, it's being a pivot. That's just what it does. And then Mesprit's kind of a mix of the two. I think that because it doesn't excel in one specific area, it makes it a lot harder for you to just be as good as the other two individual Pokemon. Next up, we have Origin Dialga. Origin Dialga, I'll put in the A tier, honestly, because yeah, I'll put in the A tier. I think honestly, it'd be around the range, probably even, maybe I say around this range. I think regular Dialga is better. So the trade-off is regular Dialga, it loses 20 attack, and that 20 attack goes into its special defense for Origin Dialga, which is cool because you can take more Earth powers, more Fire moves, more Fairy moves, whatever. The trade-off is you don't get to run an item. You have to run the Adamant Crystal, which I don't think is as valuable as having the ability to run a Shuca Berry or something. So I'm actually okay with putting Dialga above this Pokemon here. Then we have the Origin Palkia. Origin Palkia, I believe it boosts its speed, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go over here, double check quickly. I'm pretty sure it's the speed it takes from its attack, if I'm mistaken. So we have the Palkia, which is going to be 120 attack and 100 speed. And we got the Palkia Origin, which is going to be 100 attack and 120 speed. So yeah, it is a boost in speed, which, I mean, at the end of the day, you're getting a speed stat on Pokemon that is insanely strong already. It is really good. But one of the reasons why you run Palkia is because it's an amazing breaker. It's a fantastic breaker. And it wants to run a Life Orb, it wants to run a Lustrous Orb, it wants to run those things. Leftover, sure, sometimes. But I feel like the item, the fact that you can't run an item is not as good. I will say, though, I do believe that I think it's closer between Palkia and Origin Palkia than it is between Dialga and regular Dialga, but I would still lean towards this Pokemon here because I value my items so much with a Pokemon, especially my Legends. Next up is going to be the Heatran. Heatran, I would put down over here, I'd say. Heatran, you'd never see me draft. I don't think that having a Pokemon that's grounded that is 4 times weak to ground is really not, it's not very good in a league, especially with a type that's so common as ground types are. You have to have a really good support for ground type Pokemon, for ground type attacks rather. But what it provides in terms of fire immunity is awesome. It gets access to rocks, it can set up with flame charge, it can be an amazing special breaker, it can do a lot of different things, and it can lure Pokemon really well with like Power Herb Solar Beam. It does a lot for a team, I just don't like it as much as a Pokemon, so that's why it's down a bit lower than things you might have it a bit higher than. Regigigas, let's put you where you belong over here in the bottom of F tier. Slow start, it sucks. Giratina, oh, this is a Pokemon that can run the Lustrous Orb. I will put that over here. I'll put Giratina regular just slightly above it. I do believe that this is the correct format for it. I really, even though that this Pokemon, the Origin form, is more offensive, I do believe that having the ability to have the extra bulk on a Pokemon like Giratina with its typing is really valuable. And I value the item that it provides, but both of them are very good. Honestly, in a points draft, 1 point apart is really where you can look at it. Cresselia. Honestly, if you're in a competitive league, it's probably like this. But if you're in a league that's not as competitive, I can see this, okay? Its coverage is decent, gets Moonblast, Ice Beam, Psychic, stuff like that, set up, but it's shut down by so many things. It's shut down by Taunt so quickly, it's shut down by Encore, it's shut down by Toxic, it's shut down by so much. So I will see that Cresselia is probably at the bottom of C tier or at the top, not even the top, just like maybe even below Mesprit. It's arguable. I'll put it, for me, because I play mostly in competitive leagues, I put it over here, to be honest. I really don't think it's that good. Next up is Phione. Phione is F tier. We'll put it below this even. Manaphy. If you're talking about Manaphy pre-Gen 8, where it can have Tail Glow and Heart Swap and all those things, yeah, I would say it definitely belongs in B tier, arguably even above Heatran. But without Tail Glow, yeah, it's a pretty big fall from grace. Manaphy really wants to do a lot. Liv was, and you guys know Liv, Olivia Sam, she has a lot of tier lists as well, doing really well on her channel, just past 1500 as well. I do think that she mentioned something that was very accurate to me. It's just budget Suicune. Yeah, 100 base defenses all around is not as valuable as Suicune's defensive distribution. I think it's like 95 in terms of its HP and its defense, and then I think like 110 or something in its special defense. I have to double check that, but it's really good. No, it's 100, 115, 115. So it's not as valuable, obviously, than that, but 100 all around is good, and it can do a bit more offensively, and its speed stat is still really nice compared to Suicune's being only 85. But I do think that it just doesn't have as much utility because of the drop in Tail Glow. Darkrai, I love me some Darkrai. I'll actually put it above, I'll put it like this. I think Darkrai's speed stat at 125 is super underrated. It's such an amazing speed stat to have. Its coverage moves are really good. Most of the time you're running Dark Pulse, you're running Nasty Plot, you're running Sludge Bomb. Maybe you're running a Focus Blast as well to be able to hit those fighting types that are going to try and resist the dark moves, and Sludbrom for the fairy types. Just a fantastic Pokemon, does so much for a team in terms of breaking, and can sweep insanely easily. I used it with Z moves back in Generation 7, and I had a ton of fun with it. Such a great Pokemon. Skyman, this generation, it's not as good. I'll put Skyman below in the A tier. I think Skyman actually has a lot less utility in this generation, especially because Seed Flare is not in the game anymore, which is definitely something. I feel like Skyman, what it provides for a team, was really reliant on Air Slash and on Seed Flare and getting those drops or those flinches with Serene Grace. Its speed stat is great, but it's not as bulky. It doesn't provide as much for a team, as much utility as a lot of other Pokemon, so we'll put it down over here. Meanwhile, regular Shaman, I'm actually going to put also down over here, probably below the Entei. The fact that it doesn't get, I'll even put it below Manaphy, to be honest. It's more of a bulky grass now, and I feel like its stats are better suited to be, instead of having HP, I'd rather this thing be like 80 base speed and have 120 HP. I really would. It just misses out on a lot, and I wish it got access to Seed Flare again in this generation. Arceus, definitely in the S tier. If it's Arceus normal, slap Arceus normal, in my opinion, all the way up to basically here. I feel like Arceus normal is so good because you can have the items. If it's any other Arceus type, really, it's definitely at the bottom of the S tier. If it's something like Arceus Bug, I'd honestly put it towards A tier, because Arceus Bug, no item, is just not as good. It just depends on what form it is, but Arceus normal will go up here in the S tier. Victini will pop over here. We'll put it just above Heatran and just below the Zapdos. I think what Victini provides for a team is really easily mimicked, especially in this format. What it provides to a team is really just a powerful physical breaker with a great attacking move and recreate. However, it just doesn't hit as hard on the special side as I'd like it to, which is obviously a problem. U-turn is great, and the fact that it's weak to rocks is not an advantage, so we're definitely going to put Victini over here. Cobalion. So I'll talk about Terrakion first, because that's this Pokemon I have most experience with. I love Terrakion. I think Terrakion's honestly better than this. I think Terrakion's like this. I think this is more of a fair assumption. I'd probably do something like this. I love Terrakion for what it provides to a team. Fast. Nothing really takes its coverage really that well, except for like something like Golurk, really. It's a fantastic Pokemon that can boost its speed with Rock Ball, or boost its attack with Swords Dance, gets access to Sacred Sword to pass through the defense boost. Its coverage is decent. Mega Horn, Earthquake, Zen Headbutt, Iron Head, Poison Jab, Close Combat, Rock Blast, Stone Edge, all those things are really, really powerful. I like this Pokemon a ton. Then we have Cobalion, which serves a different role. Cobalion, in my opinion, I'll put it over here just above the Entei. Cobalion, what it provides is more of a pivot, in my opinion. It can still set up and do those crazy things, and its stabs are not bad at all, but it's a steel type that does not resist fairy, which I do not like at all, because that means you have to get another steel type or a really good poison type, in my eyes, to make sure that you're covered on that regard. But the speed stat it has, the fact that it runs Taunt, the fact that it runs Rocks, Volt Switch, all these things is really nice. I would love something like Terrakion got Volt Switch. I'd still run it, even though it has pitiful special attack. Virizion is nowhere near as good as those two. I'm actually going to put it below Redisteel and above Articuno. I have a newfound respect for Virizion after using it for a few weeks in the YCL, and it does a lot of work in the right matchup, but in certain matchups, it is just absolutely dog shit. It is so bad in certain situations, so we're going to stick with the coverage in the D tier overall. It's still a solid Pokemon, though. I definitely like it a lot. Next up, wow, we still got a long way to go. We're gonna go with Torn T. Torn T, I believe, is better than Mew in this generation. It's arguable. I honestly will keep it over here because I think boots are such a critical item for it, and Mew doesn't have to run boots. Regular Torn Eye is, I think, above. I put it honestly. I like Torn Eye a lot. I like Torn Eye a lot because its speed, its coverage, it's really good. Prankster, Defiant, all these things are really nice for it and can set up so easily on teams. Pivots really well. I like Torn Eye a bit more than the average person does. Thundy T will, I think, go towards here. I'll put it actually. I'll put it over here, and I'll put Thundy Eye above it. I'll put Thundy Eye actually above Latias. I think that there's definitely a divide between the two now. A lot of the time, back in previous generations, people thought that Thundy T was better because it had the immunity, 2 immunities in electric and in ground, had the ability to set up and just be insanely a great breaker. But I think we all realized the speed here that 111 provides is so much more valuable, and the fact that we have Prankster as well is really useful on Thundy Eye over Thundy T. Reshiram and Zekrom. Reshiram I'll pop up over here above the Dialga. Zekrom I'll pop up over here above. I'd say honestly, Zekrom goes higher. I'd say Zekrom goes something like this. Oops, let's get this over here. Zekrom is insane. There really is nothing that effectively switches in on Zekrom at all. This Pokemon can Scale Shot, this Pokemon can Dragon Dance, this Pokemon can Bolt Strike. As long as you're hitting your moves with Zekrom, you are going to be an absolute menace to deal with. I'm a really big fan of Zekrom. Lando T. So I'm notorious for having like one of the lowest opinions of Lando T. I'm still going to put it above the Victini, and Latios and Zapdos. Honestly, it's close between all three of these. I'll put it in the middle over here, but I think it's close. Between all three of these, what would I rather have? I'd rather have it like this. Whoops, let's go like this. I'd rather have it like this. However, I think that objectively, we'll put Landorus here, and just to appease you guys as well. Lando I, Sheer Force. Sheer Force should not be illegal in standard drafts, but in Uber's leagues, I think it's actually a bit worse than you'd expect. I think it's above the Mega Latias. Its speed tier is great at 101. The fact that it has the ability to run Sludge Wave, Knockoff, Earth Power, the cover moves like Rock Slide, U-Turn, Rocks, Defog, all these things is really good. And in the right match, if you click Rock Polish once, it's game over. There's some teams that have no switch-ins to Sheer Force Landorus. Kyurem Black, insane Pokemon. I love Kyurem Black too. I'm actually going to put Kyurem Black higher than this. I'm going to put Kyurem White a point higher. I'd actually put Kyurem White a higher point than Reshiram. Obviously, the thing that hurts these three Pokemon right here is that they're weak to hazards, to rocks. But Kyurem White being able to set up on things really easily with scale shots or subs is amazing. The fact that it has Dragon and Ice, which are really only checked by opposing well, not really, they're not even fairy types, but opposing steel types, and you have Fusion Flare as your attacking move is just insane. It's way too crazy. The trade-off is it doesn't get Dragon Dance as effectively as Kyurem Black, where Kyurem Black's Dragon Dance has Icicle Spear and Fusion Bolt, and at that point you're running Bolting coverage, which is just the best coverage you can possibly have in the game. Next up is going to be regular Kyurem. Regular Kyurem is good. I'll put it above the Victini, but it's not definitely above any of these other Pokemon here. I like it a lot. Its speed at 95 is solid. Again, still weak to rocks. It can recover up with Roost. Pressure is kind of nice to have in certain situations. It just doesn't hit as hard as its fused counter forms, which I think is a definite disadvantage for it. Keldeo Resolute and Keldeo Regular. I'll assume that Keldeo Resolute can use Sacred Sword, so I'm going to put it here. I'll put it just above Victini, and then Keldeo without Sacred Sword, I'll put it just above Victini as well. The speed is nice. The speed is really nice. The fact that it has access to decent water moves and really good fighting moves in Aura Spear, Focus Blast, and even Sacred Sword and Secret Sword is nice. I just think that its lack of coverage, it's got Air Slash and Icy Wind. It's only two other coverage options, which just is not good. It's not good at all. So there needs to be better options for Keldeo. Give this thing Ice Beam, it'd be so much better. Flip Turn does make this thing a lot better though. Pirouette Meloetta, because it's so situational, I'll put it into the F tier. I'll put it below here, and then regular Meloetta, I think actually has a lot of utility based on the fact that it's really specially bulky. So I'll put it up here into the D tier because a lot of Pokemon can't effectively handle the normal and the psychic typing unless they are like Steel types. And which, if that's the case, you go for your transformation move and it puts you into a fighting type, which is able to easily handle them. So I like that here. Genesect is great, but definitely falls, I think, just above the Landorus. What I'd rather have Genesect over Pokemon like the Giratina, even like the Pokemon like the origin forms of the Dialga and Palkia. But I do find that what Genesect provides, and overall, it's not as good. But I'd rather have them over them. Xerneas with Geomancy. I'd honestly put it like this, maybe even higher than this. But without Geomancy, it would fall sort of in this range here. But I'll assume with Geomancy, and we'll put it up here. I put it like this, and I think this is just absolutely fantastic. Just a solid Pokemon, breaks through so much. It's an amazing way to set up, and not much has switches. You have to run a team that's basically focused on being able to handle. I should probably raise it a little bit higher. You guys should be able to see this a bit better now, hopefully. Either way, the main reason I'm trying to say this is I think that this team here, this Pokemon, it breaks through any team almost all the time, unless they're running like a Duskmane Necrozma, which if that's the case, they kind of have to run it first of all. But at the end of the day, I think that teams have to build around Xerneas really, really well. Next up is going to be Yveltal. So Yveltal is, I think, it's either at the top of A or over here, depending on what you allow. And I think that honestly, I'd put it over here. It's just such a fantastic Pokemon. It just provides so much for a team. I'll put it here in the S tier. I think it should be banned in a lot of situations, but what it provides overall is a Pokemon that has a lot more utility than you'd expect, and it's a Pokemon that allows for some of the best, most creative building as well, which I love in a situation like Draft League. Next up is going to be Zygard. Zygarde 10%. We'll put it into the D tier, I'd say. C tier. Why not? No. D tier. Zygarde Complete. We'll put it here into the A tier. I'll put it just below. I'll put it like this, I'd say. Yeah, we'll go like this. Nope. Back here. And then regular Zygarde, I'll put into the A tier. I'm going to put it above Kyurem. I think that these Pokemon here, they all provide slightly different things. Zygarde Complete is better of a tank. It's better of a setup Pokemon versus Zygarde Regular is more of a, I think, status abuser and does a lot of things like that. And then the Zydog is better Scarfer or Band Pokemon, but they do different things. Mega Diancie is definitely not going to be in the S tier. It's not even going to be, I mean, I think Mega Diancie, if it was a regular league, would allow, like we'd allow it into this tier, but it'd be really good. I'll put it here for now. I think it's super solid. These Pokemon here, by the way, I would drop these. Let me just correct this a bit more. I put this like there, and I put this like there or something like that, around this range. Mega Diancie though is very scary, but I take it above Mew or Torn. Probably not, but it's still a very good Pokemon nonetheless. Regular Diancie can fall into the bottom of C tier. It provides a lot for a team. The fairy typing is great. It just does a lot more than you'd expect. Coverage is great with Mystical Fire and Earth Power. Diamond Storm is a fantastic move overall. It's just really slow, and that's really it. Next up is Hoopa U. I don't think Hoopa U is that good. However, if you don't have the right build for it, it can just decimate your team. I'll put it over here because, again, same deal as the Celebi. It is 4 times weak to U-turn. So I would put this over here in regular Hoopa. I would put over here into the D tier. Near the top of it, it hits hard. Its typing is better, I think, than the Hoopa U, but it just it's still just such an awful Pokemon in certain regards. Yeah, not the best. Next up is going to be Volcanion. Now, Volcanion, Incog wants to, well, so first of all, I want to draft this Pokemon often. Incog, my buddy, will just say, you know what? If you draft this Pokemon, I will not help you out anymore. And yeah, it's just not that great. I wish this thing got recovery moves. It doesn't. I'll put this thing over here at the top of C tier for now. It's a solid Pokemon overall, but it does not accomplish as much as you like. It's basically just main gimmick is going to be I have Earth Power, I have Sludge Wave, I have Hydro, Scald, and Steam Eruption, and I have Flamethrower, and I guess Defog nowadays. Type Null, I'm going to put Type Null over... I actually prefer Type Null. Where I prefer Type Null, I prefer Type Null over here at the top of D tier, but realistically, I think it's over here at the above Cresselia. And yes, I understand that Cresselia is usually pointed and tiered higher than Type Null, but Cresselia is just so bad, man. It's just so bad. Type Null can pivot. Type Null can absorb things from ghost types, which at the end of the day, even special Pokemon, it can absorb hits from. Like this Pokemon, it can beat Latios 1v1, which is insane to think about because of the Yveltal, because it can't be crit, all those different things. So I definitely respect Type Null a lot. Silvally can be any type. I'll put Silvally in C tier. I'll probably put it above the Torn. I think it's just a really solid Pokemon that can do kind of anything, but again, you're locking its item, which is not the best situation to be in, I think. So I'm happy with C tier over here. Cosmog, Cosmoem can go over here, down below everything. Then we have the Solgaleo and the Lunala. So Lunala, I think, is one of the better Pokemon in the in standard Ubers leagues. It's very good. Definitely an insane breaker. It can be a great Scarfer. It can be really good defensively. It gets access to basically multi-scale, which is nice as well. But Solgaleo, which I'll put over here just above the Groudon, I think has a lot more utility than people give it credit for. I've used it multiple times now. I like it a lot. Having great support options with Knockoff and Morning Sun is amazing. I wish it got Rocks, but it doesn't. It has the ability to set up really well, and it can sweep instantly because its ability will basically make it so that it's not taking as much damage from super effective attacks, so it can set weakness policy really easily as well. Next up is going to be Nihilego. Nihilego I'd put probably somewhere around here, I think. I think that, honestly, I'd put it below Suicune. Reason being is it's so frail on the physical side, and you have to give it a free turn to set up before it really starts breaking well. The good news is it gets access to Toxic Spikes and to Spikes. No, Toxic Spikes and to Rocks, rather, which is really awesome, but I just don't think it's as good as a lot of people think it is. Buzzwole, I'll put over here at the top of C tier. I think as good as it is, I think there's a step below everything else and Buzzwole, and this might be honestly the breaking point. I might toss it up into B tier, but I think it's super close between C and B for this Pokemon. Pheromosa, I'll shove over here. It'll be above, where is it? I actually want to go higher up. Let's go higher up than this. We're gonna go up to, I'd say, around this range here. I think Pheromosa, because it's so frail, is not as good as Landorus Eye or as Genesect. And maybe I'm wrong on that, maybe I disagree. Let me know down in the comments, but I do think that Pheromosa just has less to provide, less to offer than these two here. But these three are all interchangeable, and if you're drafting one, you're okay drafting the other, honestly. They're fast Pokemon, they're pivots, they hit really hard, and they can win the game on their own. It's just I have a preference for Pokemon that are not going to die to an extreme speed from basically anything. So yeah, that's why I have Pheromosa down here. Next up is going to be Xurkitree. No Tail Glow. No Tail Glow. Really hurts this Pokemon. I'll put it like this. I'll put it like this. I think Xurkitree still has the ability. It has the ability to set up with Calm Mind, so which is nice. It has Volt Switch still, which is cool. It's slow at 83 as an electric type is not great. Its coverage is like this. It's like Thunderbolt, Dazzling Gleam, and like I think that's really it. I guess it gets an Energy Ball as well, but still, that's really where I put it. Celesteela, I put above the Zygarde. I'm respecting Zapdos a lot. I put Zapdos a little bit lower. What I'd rather draft is going to be Zapdos. I actually put. Do I want Celesteela? Yeah, I want like this. More so like this, I think is a bit better. But I think overall, the Celesteela, what it provides for a team is just a really great typing. It's slow, which sucks. It's a little passive at first, but when you start setting up, it can be really deadly to deal with. Kartana, I'll put over here just above the, there we go, just like this. I think Kartana provides a lot of utility for a team, hits really, really hard. It's like 181 attack or something like that, which is insane to think about. It can beast boost up really freely. The issue is, in the matchups it's good, it's fantastic. In the matchups it's bad, it's absolutely terrible. So that's really what we're looking at here. Another Pokemon just dies to priority with like Vacuum Wave or something like that. Guzzlord. I'll put Guzzlord here at the bottom of D tier because I think that as a dark type, it's not bad. It really only suffers when you're dealing against fairy types, because even against like a big fighting type, you can also hit it with a really fat Draco Meteor, which is nice. I think fairy types are the main reason why you would not be, where you'd be against the Guzzlord, but if you have a great steel or poison type, you can definitely handle it. Necrozma, Dawn Wings. Okay, so we have Lunala up here and we have Solgaleo down here. Necrozma Dawn Wings is going to go, in my opinion, here. Yeah. And Duskmane Necrozma will go up here. Duskmane Necrozma up here. I'd say actually above. Let's put it like this. I think this is where Duskmane Necrozma should go. It is so damn good. I think I'd rather have Duskmane Necrozma over something like the Primal Kyogre, which I'm actually, let me just make a quick adjustment. Let's do this. I think I'd rather have this here, but it's a Pokemon that can get up rocks. It can be instantly defensive. It hits so hard. There's a lot of things you can do, and it checks basically every Pokemon in the format other than something like Groudon's, really, which is insane to think about. Next up is going to be Ultra Necrozma. A lot of this depends on which form you have before you Mega Evolve. It's definitely going to go up into this tier over here. I put it above. I put it honestly, if you can become Duskmane and then Mega Evolve later, I think it's honestly better than everything else. I'll put it over here above the Primal Groudon because it just hits so hard. Its typing is not the best though. It's Dragon and Psychic, which is just okay, I think. I get that Latios is here and Latias is here, but it's just not as good, I think, as other types. Like Steel type would have been better. Regular Necrozma. I'll put over, let's go up to, I put regular Necrozma above Azelf, to be honest. I think regular Necrozma is super underrated. It gets access to rocks, gets access to support moves like Knockoff, it gets Moonlight, it gets the ability to set up, it gets the ability to spread hazards and status. It's just such a solid Pokemon overall. And I can give it a lot more love in the previous generation than I do now, but it's still a very good Pokemon nonetheless. Magearna. Okay, Magearna is going to go up over here. I'll put Magearna just below, where's my Kyurem? There's my Kyurem. So just below Kyurem. I think it's a really good Pokemon. I'd rather draft Magearna over a lot of other Pokemon, a lot of other Ubers, but I think that Magearna overall what it provides for a team is while it's better than certain things, is just not as scary in my mind as a +1 Kyurem. Like whether it's a Trick or Magearna, just choose any one setup move. I think that one setup move is less intimidating than a Kyurem, so I'm putting it lower. Next up, we're going to see Marshadow. Marshadow, I hate you so much, Marshadow. You just had to dodge Thunder Wave. You just had to dodge Thunder Wave. You just had to. Either way, this Pokemon is still very scary. One of the best Pokemon in the format. Insanely hard hitting. 125 has priority in Shadow Sneak. Has the ability to break through teams with Ghost and Fighting. I believe nothing resists the coverage, which is crazy to think about. Don't BQ with this Pokemon. You don't have to run Bulk Up if you don't want to. Just honestly click Life Orb, Spell Tag, whatever, Close Combat, Shadow Sneak, Spectral Thief, Poltergeist, all those things, and you are golden with this Pokemon. Maybe Ice Punch for like a Landorus. That's really it. Next up, we're going to see is Poipole. Poipole, you are also terrible. I'd say honestly these 5 here on their own special tier. Meltan as well will be in its own special tier as well. And we'll put this down here for now. This trash will go there for now. Next up is going to be Naganadel. Naganadel in a regular Ubers League, I think is terrifying. Is just not as threatening. I think like I'd rather have these two over here in Genesect or Landorus over Naganadel, but Naganadel is still terrifying with spikes, with toxic spikes, with the ability to set up with its special attack. Its speed as an Ultra Beast is really good. Stack Attack, I'll put over here in the C tier. I'll put it just below the Entei. Actually, I'll put it just above the Entei because I like the ability to just trick them out of nowhere, and it can be really scary in certain situations. Depending on what your opponent's running or what your opponent has, they might just fold to a trick from Stock Attack because you can run whether it's Sash, or you can run something like the a resist berry like Chopple or Shucka, and it can take any one hit, trick them up, and then just go for a game with heavy slams and gyro balls and I guess stone edges, all these different moves that are gonna be very powerful. Blacephalon. Oh god, Blacephalon. I wish you were better, but you are definitely not better. I'll put you here, I think. This is where I put Blacephalon. It hits hard, don't get me wrong. It's decently fast at 107, don't get me wrong. I just think that the fact that its covered moves is like Psychic, Knockoff, Rock Blast, Shadow Ball, Fire moves, not very appealing. Not very appealing at all in my opinion. Next up, we're going to have Zeraora. Zera, I'll put over here just above Latios. I think Zera is fantastic. One of the few Pokemon I just haven't really had the chance to use as much as I want to in this generation, but it's such a strong Pokemon. Hits hard, it's physical, special, it's fast, has immunity in electric, which is great, so it means your ground doesn't have to be as threatening or as powerful or as good. It gets good support moves and knockoff. It can bulk up to setup. It can Calm Mind to setup. It just gets so much utility. I like it a lot. Gmax Melmetal. Okay, I wasn't expecting to see Gmax Pokemon here, but Gmax Melmetal. I don't want to talk about Gmaxes. I'm going to put it over here. Melmetal. Melmetal, I'm going to shove into the B tier as well. I'll probably put Melmetal below Heatran. I think that Melmetal is an insanely solid Pokemon. Overall, it just gives a lot of utility for a team. It can be physically defensive, especially defensive. It can be offensive as well. It's a great Pokemon with Sub and Toxic. It gets Rest. It gets the ability to set up with Iron Defense. It's just a super, super solid Pokemon. Its signature move in Iron Bash, Double Iron Bash rather, is really nice. I do like it a lot. It's just not as good, I think, as Heatran. Because it doesn't do as much, I think. It doesn't do as much as Heatran. Zacian is arguably the best Pokemon in the game. I would actually put Zacian up here. I think Zacian, it's this or it's Shadow Rider Calyrex. Yeah, we're going to put that there. Regular Zacian, I will also be shoving into the S tier. I will be putting it above everything else as well. Speed, attack boost on entry. That's really all you got to say. It's just an insane Pokemon. Zamazenta Crown. I think Zamazenta Crown could be like here. I think Zamazenta Crown could be here. It's just nowhere near as scary as Zacian. Just a huge difference between what Zacian does and what this Pokemon does. Versus Zamazenta Regular, I think Zamazenta Regular is definitely an Uber's Pokemon, probably around this range over here. Next up is Eternatus. I'm not going to talk about Eternatus. We're going to talk about regular Eternatus, not the Gmax. Regular Eternatus definitely goes up here. I think it's actually probably this range here. It's such a fantastic Pokemon. It's such a strong Pokemon. Great speed, gets access to fire coverage and Dragon and Poison, which really only the answers to those are going to be steel types. And it gets fire coverage, gets T-Specs, gets recover, insanely bulky, insanely strong. A lot of utility for the Eternatus. Next up is going to be Kubfu, which can go over here. We have another Gmax and another Gmax. We're not going to talk about those. Rapid Strike or Shifu, I'm going to say is more so around this range over here. I put it a bit higher than Buzzwole. You know what? I'll put Buzzwole and this over here just to be a bit more accurate. And regular Urshifu, I would shove regular Urshifu way at the top over here. This obviously, I don't want to make too many adjustments here, but I think that this would go probably like this, to be honest. Zarude is okay. I put it over here. I'm not as big a fan of Zarude as other people are. I put it in the C tier. Regieleki, in my opinion, is definitely F tier. Regidrago is definitely below that. It's definitely below that for sure. And then we have the Glastrier, which I think could arguably be C, D tier, depending on if you have a team that supports it with Trick Room. Regular Calyrex, not Calyrex, regular Glastrier. Nope. What is this one called again? Spectrier. That's the one. I just played against this Pokemon like 2 weeks ago. Why am I forgetting it? I think this Pokemon is super solid, but I would put it into the C tier because it just, what it provides for a team is super linear. And yes, it's good in certain situations. I just would rather have other Pokemon than this Pokemon here. Then we have Calyrex. Well, what is this called? This is like the regular Calyrex. This could go over here, I think. Nope, over here. And we have the Shadow Rider Calyrex. I'll do like this. I think Shadow Rider Calyrex is arguably better, but we'll keep it over here for now because Zacian, it just warps a metagame around it so drastically. We have a this is the Eternatus, no, Enamorus. The Enamorus that is going to be Therian form has what? Overcoat. So Overcoat Enamorus. I'm gonna take a look at its stats again quickly. Its stats, it's like 135 special attack and 115 attack. I just don't think it's that bulky overall. It doesn't provide as much for a team. Its typing is fantastic, but I just think that I'll put it. It's bulky. It's really bulky. 74, 110, 100 is bulky. I'll put it over here just below the Kyurem. Nope. We're gonna put this above the Keldeo. And then this Enamorus form, I think is really good. Its ability is going to be contrary most of the time. It's more offensive, which I prefer, and I think its typing offensively is really good as well. So we're going to shove this up into the... I'll put it over here. I don't think it's going to be... I think it'd be better than this. I'll put it like this. I think it stops people from going for defog, which is nice, and I'll put it over here because of that reason. But guys, that is my tier list. Let me know what you guys think about it down below. If you guys want to see more tier lists, let me know down in the comments as well. Make sure to like the video as well. We're going to try and hit 50 likes on today's video. Really appreciate if you guys help give me suggestions for other content you want to see, and we're going to see if we can do that and bring it to you guys later on. But guys, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my day off, and I will see you guys in, well, a few days for another battle. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.